Warning, the following presentation is rated S for spoilers. Major plot elements and events will be revealed for the Muppets Haunted Mansion, along with related films. If you haven't watched any of the following, it's highly recommended you do so before resuming this video. Once you're finished, feel free to return here. After 7 years since the last Muppets movie, and 10 years since the last good Muppets movie, with whatever crap this is just sprinkled in, we are finally treated with the Muppets' first ever Halloween special that should have been made years ago, with the same to yet receive its own faithful theatrical adaptation. Disney currently has a weird track record when it comes to their movies based off their theme park rides. Some are successful while others completely disregard any idea, concept, or groundwork that essentially has been already established and laid out for them. Sort of how Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, and what's-his-face besmeared George Lucas with that sequel trilogy. I mean, Disney was once capable of developing a revolutionary and forever memorable experiences that were based off their movies. They just weren't great doing the other way around. Speaking on memorable experiences, one that is a tradition I've maintained since forever is my rewatching The Muppets Christmas Carol every Christmas morning. Side review, but I believe this movie isn't only timeless, but also successfully relays the original Christmas Carol story, along with that classic quirky Muppet humor. Also, I love how each major character is played by a distinct Muppet that is either exaggerated based off the original character, or has characteristics that either mock or goof on their counterpart. And don't even get me started on the beautiful musical elements and songs that get stuck in your head until the next Christmas. I feel like the team behind this special get that. Like before anything, they all crammed everyone into a little Zoom call and order everyone to watch the Muppets Christmas Carol. And during the credits, they all said among themselves, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that, but with the Haunted Mansion. And honestly, they killed it. I don't know what I was expecting when I loaded this up on Disney Plus, but I wasn't expecting this. Not only does it feel like these are the same Muppets I grew up with, but the amount of references to not only to the Muppets, but even the history behind the mansion as well shows me that a lot of passion and care went into this project. I can't quite articulate what it is about this in only one sentence, without going over the many things I enjoyed about this special. Lately, I feel as though the Muppets from Disney has sort of been pushed into a little cubicle where they only poop out those minute-long shorts on YouTube, and haven't really made any commotion since. Not only that, but at the Design Resort, the Muppets were evicted from their attraction on November 1st, 2014, 8 months after the last theatrical film. It sort of felt like they made a giant comeback to then ultimately get swept back under the rug and forgotten until the next profitable time. But guess what? The Muppets are back from being back. Does it make up for all the lost time? Meh, not really. But it's good to finally receive some new content that I think is enjoyable. Every pun, joke, fourth wall break, I found myself actually chuckling along. Not only that, but the team behind this project left a lot of Easter eggs and references that I would like to point out. So I'm structuring this video a little differently from how I usually attempt to have this pan out. First things first, I give a special, I watched this again out of 10. I'm going to list everything I disliked first before I get into things I enjoyed and noticed. As mentioned before, this is a spoiler review, so this is your last warning because if you haven't seen this special for yourself, I highly recommend you do so. But hurry back after you're done. Just make sure you don't click off the video. Okay, so first let's start off with the bad, which should probably be the best time for me to point out one big issue I have with the current Muppets. Kermit's voice.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Yeah, okay, I know, low blow and all, but honestly, Matt Vogel, it just isn't working, man. I don't want to get into the specifics of the whole situation, that's a whole video on its own, and honestly, it has no complete relation to this project in any capacity other than the fact that Kermit just sounds awful. There, I said it.
I don't care that you...
He doesn't only sound disinterested in anything he's saying, but it just sounds like to me that Matt just kept the same voice he had as Constantine in the Muppets Most Wanted movie.
Good night, folks! Yay! Thank you and welcome to the Mansion Show! Boo!
What is that?
It's sad to me that there are random people on YouTube that can nail this iconic voice closer to the man with 25 plus years of experience with the company. Come on, Matt. I know you're very talented and we gave you a chance after Muppets Now, but we haven't seen any improvements. I don't know if it's just me, but at times the special switches from a gorgeous ominous look to having its effects look just as cheesy as the real ones in the Haunted Mansion. Oh, maybe that was done intentionally. Also, I feel like some of the songs could have had their transitions that flow from one song to the next to be a little more smoother than they currently are. There are only 3 musical numbers in this special, which I'm content with since it's only a 49-minute special. The first song, Rest in Peace, starts off with the caretaker pleading to Gonzo and Pepe to not awaken the spirits, but in the process ends up waking the spirits in order for him to introduce them one by one. The second song, Life Hereafter, starts off with references to Be Our Guest.
Now I invite you to sit back and relax as our 999 residents proudly presents your funeral.
Then swaps between original verses mixed in with some Be Our Guest lines, where it concludes similar to the Muppets opening theme song. The final and third song, Tie the Knot Tango, is a romantic dance number between Pepe the King Prong and Constance Hatchaway, and with the last name like that, you know we're in for a journey. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We start off in a limo with the great Gonzo, who has recently been invited to a secluded mansion to partake in a once-in-a-lifetime fear challenge that will be taking place on the 100th anniversary of his idol's disappearance. Gonzo receives a call from the Deep Throat Kermit, where Gonzo relays his information to him, stating that if he couldn't pull off this magnificent stunt, he wouldn't be able to consider himself the great Gonzo. Kermit, however, tries to comfort Gonzo by telling him that he doesn't really have to perform extremely dangerous stunts in order to be considered great. But Gonzo just sort of disregards his friend. Gonzo also brought Pepe the King Prong to be his +1, who seems lacking any ability to get a +1. This is where we get our first celebrity cameo with Helen from Josh and Josh, who rejects Pepe.
Speaking of pickups, how'd you like to be my +1?
Dead prong walking.
After both Gonzo and Pepe exit the limo, we get our first glimpse of the Haunted Mansion, which doesn't really resemble the Disneyland Haunted Mansion. In all honesty, to me it looks more like the Disneyland train station with the color palette of Phantom Manor. Also on the exterior gate, we see the sign that says 924, which is a reference to Jim Henson's birthday, which is September 24th, 1936. Gonzo and Pepe wander towards the entrance of the mansion, but stumble upon the presumed caretaker, who is working on 2 tombstones. The caretaker is played by Ian Heckox, who trembles occasionally, but only when he remembers to. Out of nowhere, the caretaker bursts into the first song that was mentioned earlier, but again, look at the quality of this scene. I feel like I'm watching Daphne and Velma, and also these speaking heads are a total bust. After the number has concluded, both Gonzo and Pepe rush towards the mansion doors, where they are introduced to the ghost house. This is where we basically get a word-for-word repeat of the iconic Haunted Mansion opening that has been cleverly split between Gonzo and the ghost house. But honestly, there's no real way to screw this up. Okay, well, I mean, now it's sort of a bummer that it didn't capitalize on the stretching room's hanging man, but I possibly have an explanation for that, other than it's too morbid. Cause who is this protecting? Anyone familiar with the Haunted Mansion knows about the man hanging from the stretching room. No doubt to probably be changed as well due to its grim sight, and I know this is a family-friendly show, so there's no real easy way to pick that in this form of media. So I sort of understand. Pepe is flung by the power of the goat scream towards a secret passage doorway that leads to the portrait corridor, where I feel like the portrait corridor also seemed a little lackluster. Like a major missed opportunity for some gags, but I guess what we got doesn't seem that bad either. The major difference, however, is at the end of the portrait corridor, where instead of the 2 following head busts, we see a portrait of Gonzo's idol who disappeared 100 years ago, the Great MacGuffin. And if you look closely behind one of the floating cards, you can barely see the ends of his mustache. Keep that in the back of your head for later. Gonzo and Pepe then pass by a suit of armor who attempts to chop the shrimp in half. Quick Haunted Mansion history fact, but the suit was once referred to as the Night of the Living Dead, and was performed by a live cast member who dressed in the haunted armor. However, this effect was shortly lived as it was eventually removed because Imagineering believed the jump scares were getting too predictable. Also, there are rumors that the cast members inside the suit may have witnessed in horror some not so family-friendly activity that would allegedly take place between couples in the Doom Buggy. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I think it's kinda cool that the suit of armor got to be played by someone again. Pepe then ran away from the suit, leaving Gonzo searching for him. As Gonzo then finally passed by the 2 following head butts, they're instead portrayed by Dr. Butts and Honeydew and Beaker.
So hoped we'd have a bigger cameo, Beaky. Me, mama. Budget.
Oh really, you mean to tell me this project suffered from budget? I wouldn't have guessed. Pepe then discovers a famous people's room, and if you look at the wallpaper you can see the head-shaped silhouettes of Gonzo, Pepe, and what I presume to be Uncle Deadly. Inside the famous people's room, Pepe runs into Juan Stamos, whose head suddenly morphs into the weird Muppet creature in order to scare Pepe out of the room, where he bumps into Gonzo. In this hallway you can see on the left side facing there are 7 portraits that appears to be the family portraits. Also on the right hand side facing, you'll find the infamous 13-hour clock, where the hour hand remains on the 13 while the minute hand spins counterclockwise. Finally, at the end of the hallway, there's another door that has a transom that resembles Sweet Tums. After Pepe pulls a Scooby-Doo, Gonzo then discovers that Pepe was the source of the ominous knocking of the door that he was stuck against.
You don't ask. Peel me.
After Gonzo peels Pepe off the door, they both realize they entered the Seance Circle, where they suddenly are in the presence of Madame Pigoda, who acts like classic Miss Piggy, who is complaining that her cameo isn't big enough to fit her ego. Madame Pigoda guides Gonzo and Pepe towards the exit to the next scene, but not before we get his amazing cameo of Disney Imagineering.
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
If you're not aware, this is Kim Irvine, daughter of infamous Imagineer Leoto Toombs, who's credited for a lot of things at Disneyland, but you may have seen her before. She is a face inspiration of Madame Leota along with Lil Leota. She also does the voice of Lil Leota with the famous line, "Hurry back." Kim Irvine followed in her mother's profession and also provided her similar features to Madame Leota for the holiday overlay. Also another fun fact, but I'm pretty sure the costume she appears in is the exact traditional Haunted Mansion costume. As you can see, the extra piece of fabric that allows the cast members to easily slide their name tag as opposed to stabbing the pin through the fabric. As Gonzo and Pepe enter to the next hallway, they are suddenly struck by Sweet Tums, who appears to be in a hurry. We then find ourselves in the Haunted Mansion's ballroom, with creative gags that seem to be family friendly. Oh god, is that the ghost of Tiny Tim? No, seriously, he's wearing the same fucking outfit.
treasure, we feel it arrive. Fa-la-la.
The organist is portrayed by Rolf the dog, and we also get this admittedly clever little gag with the duelist portraits. Suddenly, Sweet Tums, Gonzo, and Pepe came crashing over the balcony and into the ballroom, where we received this very unnecessary reminder of the Muppets Now.
That was unsafe.
But the show must go on, with the unfortunate reintroduction of Kermit as a ghost who is also hosting the Mansion show. During the show, we have another cameo with Fozzie the Hatbox Ghost, who carries the same level of lame jokes that honestly aren't half bad. Kermit then notices the two new guests of the Haunted Mansion, and as randomly as the first song, they decide to jump into the second musical number that was mentioned earlier. After the second musical number, the distressed and desperate Pepe states to Gonzo's desire to leave the mansion, but then suddenly is distracted by another specter, as Gonzo then walks away with the ghost host. This mysterious specter is Constance Hatchaway, and it appears that both her and Pepe have easily bonded instantly. While Pepe was busy being dragged off his feet, the host finally informs Gonzo the once-in-a-lifetime fear challenge, and instructs Gonzo to follow the floating candelabra. As we catch back up to Constance and Pepe, inside the attic where Constance spends most of her time with her belongings from her mortal life. Surprisingly see the correct amount of ex-husbands that were slain by Constance, with a hilarious cameo from Walter. As Constance pours her aching heart, she mistakenly mispronounced Pepe's name.
Pepper.
Pepe.
The third and final music number begins with the Prawn and Constance as they both sing about their love for each other, even though they just met 5 minutes ago. As Gonzo walks down the corridor of doors, you can hear the original audio tracks that are still currently present in the Disneyland Haunted Mansion. Gonzo then locates and enters the room that the ghost host told him to find, which is room 999. But all that's in this room is nothing but an empty void with an eerie mirror. Upon him getting further within the room, the great Gonzo mocks how he's not afraid of anything the mansion has been throwing at him, which boosts his belief that he can easily surpass this challenge with no problem. But as Gonzo continues to stare into the mirror, it's suddenly revealed that the mirror is possessed and reflects all your deepest fears back to you. A literal meaning that Gonzo must face his fears. It's revealed by the mirror that Gonzo may possibly fear of being left all alone by himself, as it points out that Gonzo is trapped in the room with no one around. Gonzo then shows a one-way view of his friends who are presumably back in Kermit's home, who is hosting the annual Halloween party. With every moment Gonzo is staring into the mirror, you can see him age and decay as he's left to witness his friends enjoy the party without him. At the party, a gloomy-looking Kermit expressed to Scooter that he wishes that Gonzo was here, with Scooter replying that Gonzo obviously couldn't pass up the opportunity to prove that he's great. As again, Kermit recites to Scooter what he said to Gonzo earlier, that Gonzo brushed off. After hearing this for the second time, Gonzo then realizes deep down his desire to perform dangerous stunts is rooted in his obsession to maintain the great Gonzo image, but realizing practically what Kermit was saying to him all along. With every admission unlocks the door that trapped Gonzo in room 999, as then a mist pours over Gonzo, reverting him back to his normal young form, as he then escapes room 999. Also, I believe this actually is a reference to the Haunted Mansion film starring Eddie Murphy. In that movie, Eddie Murphy was drawn to a similar looking room by a ringing telephone, where a mysterious specter hung up on the other end. After Eddie puts down the phone, he glances into the mirror, but then gets a cheap jump scare from a crow atop the mirror. After Eddie Murphy eases up from the scare, he glances back in the mirror to see an old decrepit and decaying version of himself in the mirror that causes him to scream. I could be wrong, I just think these scenes are a little too similar, that's all. Before Gonzo escapes and leaves the mansion, he momentarily forgets about Pepe and demands to know where he is. The ghost host warns Gonzo that if he doesn't leave the property before sunrise, both him and his friend will be trapped in the mansion forever. That would be best for Gonzo to just leave the mansion and Pepe behind. However, Gonzo insisted that he must save Pepe. The ghost host then obliges and guides Gonzo towards the attic with the floating candelabra. Back in the attic, we find that Constance and Pepe's wedding is suddenly taking place, with the marriage officiant being cameoed by Uncle Deadly. As the great Gonzo dashes down the endless hallway to save Pepe, we see a few more cameos from the Muppets and references to The Shining. Gonzo attempts a daring jump, but unfortunately misses the attic's door, and is swallowed whole by a mysterious monster hiding under the stairs. But then Gonzo escapes the snarl-like pigment and successfully was able to interrupt the wedding. Gonzo wraps up the wedding as fast as it was put together, grabs Pepe as they both jump out the attic's window and land outside in the graveyard, which then startled the caretaker who was finishing up on the 2 tombstones he was working on earlier. On the tombstones are both Gonzo and Pepe's name, but it appears that the caretaker mistaken Pepe's name for the pepper similar to Constance. But before Pepe can correct the caretaker, Gonzo drags him towards the front gates, while the graveyard ghosts attempt to convince him to stay a little longer. As they were almost off the property, they are stopped by the ghost host, who informs Gonzo that he actually accomplished the fear challenge, a feat he wasn't able to accomplish himself. The ghost host then reveals his true identity as being the one who you may have guessed as the Great MacGuffin, along with his sidekick Pee-wee. This may possibly be the reason as to why there's no hanging man in the stretching room other than it's too morbid. If you didn't know, the body hanging from the ceiling was actually the disembodied ghost host, whose true identity has always been shadowed in mystery and speculation. In this take on the Haunted Mansion, the ghost host is changed to be the Great MacGuffin, whose death is admittedly just as mysterious as the original ghost host's identity. But we could presume that he never hung himself since there was no body hanging or any sign of a rope around his neck. He is the one who presumably sent the invitation to Gonzo. And can't we just all appreciate how the main character that is responsible for creating the event and guiding the story forward is named the Great MacGuffin, with his little red herring sidekick? I mean, if that's not comedy, I don't know what is. Before he departs ways with Pepe and Gonzo, Gonzo receives a gift for his bravery from his idol that I believe he will cherish forever. After Great MacGuffin vanished, Gonzo and Pepe are rescued and picked up from Helen from Josh, who is surprised to find them again. As our heroes enters in the car, we hear from a distance a faint pleas from Constance begging her love to hurry back. But before they drive off, Gonzo receives a call from the fake Kermit, who mentions and invites them to breakfast, and even extends his invitation to these 3 random hitchhikers who materialize. The last shot before the credits is a limo license plate that says The End, with the vehicle's registration being on Halloween, October 31st. And that's the special. It sort of just ends with the Muppets and the featuring celebrities singing along to a copyrighted song, so I'm not even going to try. Overall, I think this was a beautiful, neat little thing that we got to see Muppets do, and it's a little sad that it took the Muppets to give us a somewhat faithful adaptation of that ride. Also, can we just all admire the fact that this special is almost a complete scene-by-scene retelling of the Haunted Mansion ride, with the exception that the graveyard and singing takes place before they even enter the mansion. From being introduced to the ghost host, to the stretching room, and so on. I mean, at the end of the special, both Gonzo and Pepe jump and fall out of the attic and into the graveyard, similar to how we fall out of the window on the ride. I know I've been a little harsh on some of the effects and quality of the special, but I think it all kind of balances out with the beautiful retelling of this infamous attraction. And honestly, this isn't the first time the Muppets have had chalky looking scenes. But I can tell that people behind the script genuinely cared about the end product. Do some of the songs not mix well? Yeah. Do some of the jokes not land right? Definitely. But that's the Muppets. The self-aware, self-deprecating humor where they just don't take themselves that seriously at all. Like I said before, the people behind this project watched the Muppets Christmas Carol movie and completely adapted and remade that classic and delivered us a TV special I'm sure we'll be revisiting from years to come. Happy Halloween, everyone, and I hope you all enjoy this rare treat that we've been needing for a long, long time. Oh hey, Sky Jackson's here. Glad she could take time out of her busy schedule of doxing 13-year-olds to make this brief cameo. How gracious of her.